Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you, Giovanni. Hope everyone learned a little bit more about this insert and the capabilities it has to offer. So with that, I do want to get into the Q&A section. We have a nice number of questions already asked, so feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A box or in the chat box, and we'll make sure to get to them. Andrew, I'll start off with you. I got one here from Jorge. He asked, what is the minimum thickness required on the material to be installed?
Yeah, so on the smallest keep nut, which is the 1 crown keep nut, that has a depth. Well, there's actually 2 types of 1 crown keep nut. Maybe I'll see if I can pull up the picture. There's the flush mounted and the kind with the flange. The 1 crown with the flange, which is the IM1T model, that has the smallest drilling depth. So that is drilled to a depth of 4.5 millimeters. And so generally it's kind of on the subject of the installer in terms of, what they feel comfortable with, how much thickness, what percentage of the material they want to drill into. We say that, basically an 8 millimeter panel is about the smallest that normally we would recommend. If you have a panel that's shorter than that and that's thinner than that and you're comfortable drilling in 4.5 millimeters, then it will certainly work. Hopefully that. Anything you wanted to add to that, Giovanni? I see you're still muted on the Zoom, but if you wanted to have any comments.
Here we are.
So anything to add to the thickness question?
No, it's perfect. You have studied very well all our information. We are very proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We do have Bogomil, who mentioned that he has they're the distributor in Poland. If anyone is in the area of Poland, it's Mokujemi, and he's mentioning that he does have some customers that do use the IM1T model on 6 millimeter product, HPL and solid surface. So thanks for that comment, Bogomil. I happen to see that in the chat. But sorry, go ahead, John.
Great. We have another question here from Raphael. He mentioned that they produce a lot of porcelain tops, 1/2 inch from Porcelanosa. He said that they do not recommend a drill on it because it creates tension points on the slabs that can cause cracks. Have we had experience with this type of material, and what is the depth and how do we go about that?
May I answer to this question?
Go for it.
So this is a very good question that allowed us to explain that for porcelain, we have ATA certification. That means that European certification office have made all the possible tests on our keep nut on those material. If they use the IM, for instance, 2S, M6, H6 on 1/2 inches, they will absolutely have any problem, and it will not create any kind of tension inside the material. If those people will be interested, we can send them the ATA certification where all is explained in detail about it.
Yeah, and I know we have some people from Porcelanosa on this call. So obviously, every manufacturer is going to have their own recommendations on what they do with their material. We'd be happy to discuss with any of their technical people whether there's any modification that is possible for their technical recommendations and whatever. But we'd be happy to do whatever testing is needed to be done to satisfy everybody. But I just want to point out that I can't speak to Porcelanosa's product in particular, but we have done quite a lot of testing on 12 millimeter porcelain products. You can see this. I want to bring up this picture here. This is actually 12 millimeter porcelain, and you can see that we did this at a workshop in Nashville, and you can actually see you got 2 people standing in the sinks. And I want to point out too that that's each of those sinks is only supported by 4 keep nuts. And then silicone we didn't have time before constructing this to even add silicone. So there's no sealant of any kind. It's just the anchors are the only thing. I know someone might look at that and go, oh, the silicone sealant does 90% of the work anyway. There's no silicone in this joint. and it held up fine. So I would say 12 millimeter porcelain in general is a great application, and we haven't had any issues to speak of with parts cracking or breaking. The only thing I would say is on your when it's drilling, we do recommend, number one, to use a correct bit. So there are bits with softer bonds for porcelain. So we have two bits. We've got and this is a good thing to kind of bring up. It's a granite and quartz bit, and then we have a porcelain and sintered stone material bit. So you want to make sure you're using the right bit that'll give you the maximum life out of your bit. And then also you might want to back off on the feed rate if you're doing automatic drilling. If there's too much downforce while the drilling, it's a little bit harder to drill porcelain materials, then you can crack the material. But assuming that your machine is set up correctly and you do some tests, I always recommend doing things on scrap pieces if you're doing something for the first time. I'm sure you'll be able to find a setting that will work okay.
Thanks, Andrew. Got another question here from Jorge. He said to clarify the dented outer ring. So I'm assuming the crowns or the teeth of the keep nut and how they expand to stay secured in that drilled hole.
Giovanni, did you want to field that one?
Yeah. The keep nut crown are made of elastic spring steel. It means they flex only in one direction. That is the one that allows them to go inside the material, but doesn't move in the other one. So when you apply a force, they go under tension and they will anchor to the material.
Yeah. So the analogy that I like to make is if you're familiar with like the children's toy, it's like a Chinese finger trap where you put your finger into the device, and as you try and pull your finger out, it's almost tightening on your finger. That's kind of how it works. And I did want to clarify that, the question said, how do those teeth expand? So that's one of the nice things about it is they don't really expand. The hole is slightly undersized, so the teeth actually compress slightly as they're put in. And what that means is that you end up with a low stress anchor where it's not really when the system is at rest, it's not really applying stress onto the material. So great question.
Another question here for you. This is a good one. Are your products certified to be used in hurricane-prone areas like Florida and the Gulf Coast?
We don't, there's the Miami-Dade certifications. I don't believe, typically it's the installers that would do the test for a particular project to make sure that it's certified for wherever it's going to be. I'm not aware of any projects that are done in the Miami-Dade area for hurricanes. I know we did do some testing on the deformed nut for the projectile test, which I know that involves. I have no reason to believe that it wouldn't pass, but I think those are tests we probably have to do if a project arrives. I did want to also mention that, this is still a newer product in the cladding facade market for North America. It does have a very good track record, in Europe and the rest of the world. And so we're just now trying to kind of recreate a lot of the success that we've had in Europe and the rest of the world. That's why we just got these test results from the ASTM from an independent lab. So we're trying to basically do some of that development work now. So that's something that we'd be happy to talk to you about if you have projects that are in Florida or in areas where they need those certifications. We can work through that.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. Got a question here from Mateo. Do we have any numbers on the pullout value on 10 millimeter and 12 millimeter porcelain? Was that
we do. I'll see if I can navigate to that slide. There's more than what I'm going to have on the tip of my fingertips is the numbers that we just got from the Natural Stone Institute. Here, let me where are those testing numbers. But we've done many more testing on porcelain materials, but this is just what I have in this presentation. So here's 12 millimeter porcelain. You'll see in shear, we have 1,670 pounds in shear strength, and that's average. And then in tensile, we have 614 pounds for 12 millimeter porcelain. We have some other porcelains that we've tested. We also have the the ETA certification, the full report has testing on tensile, shear, combination of tensile and shear. And so we've got additional porcelain numbers. I'll see if I can put our friends in Italy on the spot. I don't know what other information they have at their fingertips. So Giovanni, do you have any additional numbers handy on 12 millimeter porcelain?
No, it's these numbers are more than correct. Yes.
Yeah, so that should give you an idea. And then if there's any more tests, we can, you feel free to email us whatever. We can send you some additional test reports if there's more data that you'd like to see.
Sorry, Andrew, if you can stay on this slide,
Oh,
we
good.
can
You just caught me
directly
just in
answer.
time.
We can directly answer to the next question that is from our friend John Grossworth. Is talking about the result on UHPC, and as you can see, the last four value on this slide are especially talking about UHPC 15 millimeter and 19 millimeter with the correspondent tensile value and shear value.
Yep. And the only thing I would add to that is typically for UHCP, they are a bit softer than like stone or porcelain. So you normally, to get those values, you normally have to go to the next size up keep nut than we would normally recommend, for stone, because it's kind of the harder the material, basically the higher pull-out strengths that we get. So if you look at the granite, for instance, I was really just shocked, actually. We just got these numbers earlier this week, that the black, for those of you that are granite and solid surface fabricators, probably would come no surprise to you of how much harder black absolute granite is compared to other types of granite. But here on the black absolute with the 15 millimeter keep nut, we got 3,300 pounds in shear. That's the biggest number I've seen for anything with the keep nut, at least with that size keep nut. So as the harder, and then you see on the softer stones, the numbers go down a little bit. So on a UHCP product, I would typically start with the 4 crown with either the 8 millimeter or the 15 millimeter, whereas with a stone kind of or a harder material, you could probably go with the 2 crown, which I said is our most popular. So I just wanted to, great question.
Got a great question here from Prakash. He's asking, can we reuse the keep nut if the stone is broke or for some other reason?
No, we wouldn't recommend reusing a keep nut. Those crowns do get, kind of deformed as they're inserted into the stone. And, depending on what you're doing, if it's furniture, maybe the risk is low, but if it's something vertical, for whatever it costs for one keep nut, I think you'd be better off using a new one rather than risk something coming apart and falling on you. I think any money you'd save by trying to reuse a keep nut, you'd probably, lose in either lost sleep or having to go back and fix something. So I would certainly recommend a new keep nut for any hole that you try and drill.
Thanks, Andrew. Another question here from Kurt. He said, is there any values we have for tensile or shear when installed in steel?
Yes, we have done some application also on steel, on carbon fiber, on fiber resin, many different material. Steel is very general. It depends how does it mean steel. If it is milled steel, if it is like a tube, if it is drilled by machinery, if it is stainless steel, we can have a big variety of different results on this. If you would like to address us the specific of the application, we will be performing a test for you and give you the result so you can evaluate the exact performance you can obtain.
Yeah, and I think we do have, we were sending out invitations for this webinar to all sorts of industries. We did send it out to some sign manufacturers. So I don't know if anyone joining us today is a sign fabricator. There's not maybe as many applications for sign fabricators, but I've talked to many sign fabricators who want to use it on metal that's, half-inch thick or quarter-inch thick, where they want to use it on small letters, where they don't want to weld and have something that's visible on the other side. So there are some interesting applications for signage where you could use them in metal. So yeah, I think that's a good application. There's certainly lots of different types of fasteners for metal, but in some special cases, the keep nut could make sense.
It's a question for you. What is a facade?
Yeah, so we have people that are doing, a lot of the people that are joining us are people that are facade manufacturers. So we talk about the building exteriors or cladding. So people are putting, external facades on the types of buildings, and to have these decorative looks, they might want, you might see buildings with natural stone exteriors, or that are cladded in porcelain or cladded in a wide variety of materials. One thing that the keep nut is often used in is ventilated facades, or what they call ventilated facades, which is there's a kind of an air, I'm not a facade expert. I do understand the fasteners, but basically there's an air gap between the building, and there's I've spoken to a lot of facade engineers that they talk about the advantages in terms of insulation and water performance by having an air gap so that water can't penetrate the facade. If water does penetrate the facade, it doesn't go into the building. It just goes into the air cavity between the. So those are typically installed with rails. And so if you saw actually, if a great example would be if Giovanni, I don't know if you can move the camera and show the facade example that you have in your showroom there.
Yes, wait a second.
But you can see we saw they're typically used with clip and rail systems. So if you're a granite fabricator and you put stone up and you're not familiar with some of these clip and rail systems that are out there, you could see some examples here. So here, let me spotlight this video here so everybody can see this.
Okay, now it is connected. We have two different kind of facade substructure produced by customer of us. One is done with vertical structure. When you fix, as you can see from this Lexan panel, you can see through how it's made the fastening to the main rail. And we can see on the other side an horizontal version. Made with horizontal rail. Andrea, in basso c'è, se vuoi inquadrare la piastrella dietro come è fatto.
Yeah, so this is the deform nuts then?
With a different kind of fastening to the rail. This is a lightweight stone with honeycomb on the back, but fixed with keep nut as well. We have a keep nut according to this thickness that goes through the honeycomb and gets anchoring in the stone.
Right. So we have two solutions there. In this example, I know some like local regulations, they want the mechanical fastener into the stone. So even though there's a honeycomb backer, they still want to be able to go into the stone.
Yeah.
That's
you see, this is how it looks like if you go in the section of this application.
Right. Or if you're using lightweight stone, with a lot of the lightweight stone panels that have honeycomb in the back have very thin stone where you couldn't use a keep nut. In that case, we have the deform nut, which actually anchors into the honeycomb itself. So
correctly.
Two options for you depending on your application. So here you can see how the clips are actually installed. And again, some anchor manufacturers will have specialized clips that have to be used with their system. Once you have that female thread on the panel, you can put any clip or any piece of hardware you want. So if there's a particular manufacturer of clips and rails that you like to use, you can use whatever you'd like there.
Our system is open to accept every kind of substructure. We have definitely no problem on that.
Yep, and that was a great example of how they're installed. They're usually these extrusions, they're extruded metal, and they're designed to just kind of fit right onto each other to make it very easy to remove panels. A lot of people that do facades, they might be used to using, if they're not used to using undercut anchors, they might be used to using anchors that go into the side of the stone or that go into the, that kind of stack, and they're called kerf anchors. So in those, if you have a panel that breaks in the middle, you can't replace it. Where if you go with a back anchor, like this, you can remove one panel if possible.
Sorry, Andrew, to interrupt you,
problem.
just to show that all this, the side of the facade, the corner, is made by porcelain. Our friends before was asking us about keepnut in porcelain.
Right.
You can see from this style that is a typical application made on porcelain tile. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Ryan, for that question. I got a couple questions here. It looks like, G, I'm sorry, G, I don't have your full name here, but they're asking about how can customers calculate the number of keep nuts required depending on the application?
Well, I'll take a stab at that. So we always encourage, while we do can give you a lot of support in terms of how you use the keep nut and can talk to you about your process, we generally do like to see engineers being involved in projects. So in the projects that I've worked on, typically the engineer kind of really makes the recommendation. I'll shout out to a specific, I don't know if there's anyone from Pico Engineering on this call, but we've done several projects with Pico Engineering, and they kind of specialize in stone projects here in Canada and North America. And there's lots of other engineering firms that are out there. That's one that just kind of jumped right in the forefront of my mind. But we could, if you need a good engineer, we can point you in the right direction of some other people. But typically we would defer to them in terms of, you need their signature, and from a liability standpoint and everything like that, it's really best to have the engineer make those kinds of determinations. But I could just tell you, what I can tell you is kind of what's typical. So for a typical size panel, I mean, you might see, and Giovanni can maybe help me here, between 4 and 8, depending on the size of the panel. If it's a typical size panel, would you agree with that?
We get a guideline shown on our ATA certification that gives a suggested distance between the keep nut. But as you correctly say before, it depends from the complete project, because data like flexibility of the material, kind of substructure, or many other variation independent from our fixing system can influence the result. So the best solution, as Andrew says in advance, is always to have an evaluation from an engineer that after that can sign this decision. Correct.
And that protects everybody. That protects you guys, and that protects us. So
just one more thing that could be interesting. We are talking about different material. We want to show you the material we have placed in this demo. This is travertine, granite, HPL, Corian, marble, Decton. And this is Lexan, just to allow us to see through the fastening system. All the gray facade is made of porcelain grass.
Yeah, and although that Lexan one is just for demonstration purposes, yeah. I mentioned the sign industry. We've had a lot of people do some interesting things, anchoring directly into acrylic or polycarbonate.
Perfect. The keep nut perfectly fit in the Lexan. It works very, very good.
Yeah. Got any more questions, John?
Yeah, I wanted to add here, Giovanni was on the subject. We have a question here, and maybe we can help you out here as well, Floyd, on the grid systems that you're showing with the panels there. What do you?
Yes, of course. Of course, we can send them all the information about in separate email. Yes, no problem. Will be a pleasure for us to give the information.
Great. I got a nice question here from Justin. Is there a risk of corrosion if installed in an area with lots of humidity or standing water?
No, thanks to the fact that the keep nut is made of stainless steel, and especially the key version is made of AESI 316, that is A4 in other standard. That is the material used for the naval industry, it's absolutely not influenced by the oxidation standing either in the salt water. So absolutely doesn't have any effect on the keep nut.
Yeah, and we didn't show that video, but going back to the sink application, that's one of the things that people really like about it is we've got another video, and you'll see a link to our YouTube channel where we've got a lot of videos, and one of them is showing the drilling on stone. And what they have is the CNC drills the holes, and then the operator just comes in before even removing the material and just inserts right into the wet stone, that's just been drilled. And that's a very time saving and really convenient process for them, and they don't have to worry about drying out the stone. It eliminated a lot of steps for that particular customer.
Thanks, guys. Here's another a facade or paneling question from Jorge. Can damaged panels be individually removed and easily replaced?
Yeah, it depends from the kind of subtractor you are using. The one that we show over there, yes, you can remove one single panel, because everyone is installed independent from the other. So in this way, you don't have to move the line up or the line down or all the column, but you can work directly on the single panel to change it if you need
it. Any other questions?
I got another one here. This was as far as how many anchors, and G, we can help you out on this directly. But he's just describing, he's got a slab at a certain size and thickness and looking for the keep nuts. I should just add that you can send us this information. We'll give you a general idea on how many to use and what we'd recommend. But like the guy said here, you probably want to incorporate that to whatever panel system you're using and substructure and all that. You guys can add a little bit more to that.
So if you evaluate this question with the table we have shown before about the result, you see that 300 kilos can be handled by only one keep nut. In spite of the fact that there's a slab, we minimum fixed 4. So we have a safety factor of 4. And the question about weight is resolved. What is counting and what this engineer's calculation is the effect of wind, the pressure, or things like that can move force completely different from the weight. So that is once more important if you are making an external facade to have the consultancy of an engineer that is able to evaluate all this possible effect. If you are working instead of for an internal facade like a boiserie, you have no problem at all because this weight can easily be handled by 4 keep nut.
Yeah, so great. I did just want to point out that we are technically over time. We did schedule this event for 12 o'clock as an ending time. We will keep going as long as there's questions. We'll maybe give a couple more minutes. But for any of you people that are online, obviously, if you have to get to a meeting or whatever, we certainly understand, and we'll again, you'll get the recording of everything. But we'll leave a couple more minutes for some more questions. But I just wanted to give everybody that update that we'll just keep going as long as kind of questions are flowing.
Here you go, Andrew. I got one for you here. As far as the drill bits go, how long are you seeing these last? And what are the different types again? If you don't mind going
Right.
over that.
So that's a great question. So I'll start off with granite and those kinds of materials. So granite, quartz, natural stone. With the most data I have is really about CNC drilling. And this is still kind of pretty anecdotal. What I'd have to ask a fabricator for a really big favor, which is, can I just set up your CNC machine and just have it drill holes, do nothing but drill holes and count them until it's done? And I'm friendly with a lot of fabricators, but not that friendly. No one's going to do that for me. So if anyone's willing to do that, let me know. But what I can tell you is that I have customers that are buying, thousands of keep nuts a month. So let's say I've a customer in a high production shop might be buying 2,000 keep nuts a month, for instance, and that customer might only order a drill bit from me every, 2 or 3 months. So I've seen really phenomenal life because the conditions are very controlled, where the bit is going up and down at the same rate every time. And if they're drilling lots of quartz and engineered stone, there's even less. Some of the production shops are drilling 70% of their production is quartz, and quartz is very easy to drill, and it's the same kind of material. Where it's more of a custom shop, and they're doing they might be doing, like I said, granite on one day, porcelain on another day. If they're doing all sorts of different materials, that's going to affect the life. Porcelain, you want to use the right bits. So again, we've got 2 bits. We've got a granite, 2 for stone materials. We've got a granite and quartz bit and a porcelain and sintered materials bit. So you want to use the right bit for the job. That's going to give you the maximum length. And then there's different types of attachments. So the most common in the US is an attachment called 1/2 gas. We also have reverse thread. That's a specialty bit that some certain manufacturers of machines use reverse thread bits. So we have that as well. And then there's adapters if you need something other than that. And then we also have bits that fit on standard grinders for manual drilling. The one with a 5/8 11 attachment will fit on a hand tool. There's also metric attachments. So if you need was it M11, Giovanni? Is that the standard attachment for in Europe for a hand tool?
We have 1/2 gas or M14 as a
M14,
standard.
excuse me.
M14,
Yeah, so M14 would be the equivalent for a polisher or a grinder. It is possible in natural stone to freehand holes with a grinder. I've seen people do it. I don't recommend it if you're very skilled and have a very steady hand, or you can make some kind of template. Otherwise, we have our KDM drilling machines that accept 5/8 11 drill bits. So then moving on to different materials, we have a drill bit that's it's just a standard, what they call a jobber bit. So if you just have a drill bit that you would see around your house, for drilling wood, etc., we have that. It's the correct size. It's an 11.8 millimeter bit. Those only cost, I forget the exact number, $5 or $10. They're very inexpensive. They'll fit in just standard lithium ion drills if they have a half-inch chuck. And then again, for router bits, for a wood router, you can use almost any size and then program the router to drill the correct size hole. So I think that covers all the possibilities for. The only thing we didn't really talk about is glass. We can produce bits for glass, but we haven't had too many requests for that. The anchor does work in glass. The one thing I will say in terms of countertop material is where we've seen the most usage of glass, and that would be a sea glass material or stone glass, which is a glass kind of material that's made to be a countertop. And then we found our porcelain bits work pretty well for that kind of material. Hopefully that kind of answered your question.
Appreciate that, Andrew.
Yeah.
Got another one here. Thread sizes. What kind of thread sizes are possible with the keep nut?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm surprised we didn't talk about that. So in North America, the most common is 1/4-20. The next most common is 10/24. And certain applications, 10/24 is a better choice. I had somebody called me just yesterday about looking for an HPL application, and they wanted to use standard Z clips, so not like heavy duty Z clips that are used in granite applications. But I asked them what the diameter of the hole is on the clip that already has holes in it, and it would accept a 10/24 perfectly. 10/24 is also going to be most common, probably your best bet for signage applications. We can do special threads. We've had people ask us. We've produced 1032 threads for the furniture industry. We have those in stock right now, I believe. We've had a customer ask us for 832 threads. We can produce it, but that would be a custom order. So if it would require a large quantity. And then metric, we have M4, M5, M6. And then in the stud version, we can do all the way up to M8. Is that correct in the stud version, Giovanni?
The standard version, yes. The maximum one we can produce is M8,
Yeah,
but mostly are custom made. So up to M8 we can produce upon the customer request.
yeah. So the largest thread in standard would be M6. And then if you want the male version, which has a male stud sticking out, which is what I mean by that, we can do that into up to an M8. So if you want the thickest, and there's maybe a point to that, because when we do our pull testing in shears, sometimes we're shearing the bolts. So the bolts could be the weak point. So you actually could get some better results by going to an M8.
All right, Andrew. It's the last question I have here. If anyone wants to drop another question, this would be a good time for it. But last one I have here is just on testing. What are the options for customers as far as if they want to request testing or get testing done?
I'll let you jump in there, Giovanni.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Andrew.
The question was, what can a customer do if they want to request some testing or any information on any specific surface they're using currently?
There's definitely no problem. We have a laboratory perfectly equipped for this operation. So the customer, we can get just the information on what he would like to test. Then they can send us the samples and we perform the test completely free of charge, and we will return him the test report.
Yeah. And then I mentioned too that we're also doing some third-party laboratory testing for ASTM currently. We have some results. We keep sending material; they keep sending us results. So that's kind of an ongoing project, so we're working on getting that done. So if you're a surface manufacturer out there, I know we have some people in the office in the attendees that are representing surface manufacturers. If you'd be willing to collaborate with us on that, go ahead and please get in contact with us, and so that way we could have some third-party testing that you can use for your customers and for those projects.
Great, thank you, Andrew.